The best conversation tips to attract women and what women really want to hear might surprise you. Have you ever been in a situation where you actually managed to get into a conversation with a woman you're attracted to, but then you felt awkward and you didn't know what to say? Well, this is not uncommon. You start getting nervous, your heartbeat increases, you get sweaty palms. Next thing you know, your tummy feels all in a mess, and suddenly your mouth goes dry and your thoughts freeze up. Meanwhile, she's looking at you, waiting for you to say something. Awkward. And that only makes it worse, making you both want to look around for an escape. But the good news is, these best conversation tips to attract women are not only fun, but easy, and they're going to make conversations flow a lot more naturally. Because what women really want to hear isn't about how much you can impress her or how much you've accomplished. It's something entirely different. Let's look at what the best conversation tips are to attract women and what women really want to hear, so you can stop suffering socially and start having fun, enjoyable conversations with the kind of woman you really want to get to know better. Conversations that make women comfortable, curious about you, and wanting more. Welcome to Just the Tip. So as I've said in many videos, women mirror your feelings, and in general, women mirror your feelings. So if you're anxious and nervous, she's going to feel anxious and nervous, and she might not even understand why that's happening. And one of the best ways to feel less anxious and less nervous in conversation is with someone you're comfortable with, which brings us to number 1. Conversation, not conversion. What do I mean by this? The reason you feel nervous is because you're afraid of rejection, but you can't get rejected if the only thing you're curious about or interested in is a conversation, not converting that conversation into a phone number or a date or a relationship. If you're thinking about an ulterior motive end goal, that's when you're going to feel nervous about everything you say, and that's when she's going to feel nervous along with you. But when you make the conversation about having a mutually satisfying and engaging conversation, then it can flow more naturally. She won't feel like you're after something because you're not. And this doesn't mean that you can't convert if it is going well, but it's not the goal. In fact, when you're only there to provide her with a stimulating conversation, then the chances are she actually will want more. And as I've said in some other videos, the best way to put her at ease is by saying very early on in the conversation, I only have a minute, but I only have a minute, but I really wanted to talk to you. Or only have a minute, but I have to be somewhere else in however long, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. This way, she knows that there's an end time to your conversation in case it doesn't go as well as you're hoping. And when you go in with just wanting to have some fun and a pleasurable interaction with nothing more, then it makes it much easier to get to the best conversation tip number 2. Use your real voice. So I talked about this several years ago. And basically what happens is when you're nervous, your voice tends to go up a couple octaves. It's not your real voice. You also lilt the tone of your questions in such a way that make it obvious that you're nervous. So the best way to find your real voice is to start with saying, So usually whatever comes after is your real voice. And I got that tip from an actor friend of mine, because trying to sound confident when your voice is nervous, shaky, or higher than it naturally is makes a woman feel nervous because your voice is not congruent with the actions you're trying to portray, the act of being confident. This actually happened to me. So I already knew this, and I was walking and a guy came up to me and started talking to me, and right away I said, "You're not using your real voice." I'm not sure how I knew it, but he was like, "What do you mean I'm not using my real voice?" And so I told him, start with and then he tried it, and then his voice was different. It was his natural voice. So how many are you humming right now? So using your real voice ties in nicely with number 3. Use her name. What's our favorite word in the entire world? It's our own name, the sound of our name on someone else's lips, in someone else's voice. Okay, let's not go anywhere with that. Anyways, we all love the sound of our own name because when we hear it, we feel like we've been seen, we feel like we've been acknowledged, And we tend to feel more comfortable with people who use our name because usually our name is used by people who we're familiar with. Listen to the difference this makes. What's your favorite thing about this coffee shop? Versus, so John, what's your favorite thing about this coffee shop? So if your name is John, you might have heard the difference there. And the Ashleys of the world will hear it too. So the other thing is, most guys don't use her name. It feels uncomfortable because you're not familiar with her, especially if you just met her. But whether you've just met her or you already know her, using her name makes her feel more familiar, more comfortable with you. You want her to feel comfortable with you because then she won't want to run away. And the best way to get her name when you don't know it is simply by introducing yourself. Hi, my name is John. What's your name? Bold, confident, attractive, which brings us to the best conversation tip for attracting women, number 4, bold eye contact. Again, when you make eye contact with someone, when you hold eye contact with someone, you tend to be more familiar with them if you're going to hold contact for a little longer. So if you can do this, especially with someone you don't know that well, then you're going to appear confident and you're also going to build a little bit of tension. You do need to have some tension for there to be able to be the possibility of sexual attraction. But you don't want it to be so tense that it makes her feel uncomfortable in a way that makes her want to go, to leave, to escape, please. You'll be able to make and hold more bold eye contact when you've done the other things up to this point. So you've engaged in conversation, not conversion. That makes your conversation non-threatening. You've used your real voice. That makes her feel comfortable. You've used her name. That makes her feel familiar. So from there, if you use more bold eye contact, then it's going to add some tension, but not too much. And what's bold eye contact? It's essentially holding eye contact for 1 or 2 seconds longer than feels comfortable. You need to be the one to create and hold that tension just a little bit. If she looks away first, awesome. That doesn't mean you're going to stare her down. But 1 or 2 seconds is good. And then you can launch into another topic of conversation or segue into another aspect of whatever you're talking about. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you have trouble holding eye contact with a woman you're attracted to? Let me know in the comments. Also, bold eye contact means not blinking as much. So what happens when you're nervous? Heart rate goes up, blink rate goes up. If you can get into that state where you're not nervous, which is going to take some practice, more on that in a minute, then you're going to blink less. And that, again, is going to unconsciously translate to her of you being confident and comfortable with her. And bold eye contact, holding eye contact, comes from a place of being present. So, of course, when you're nervous, it's likely because you're in your head thinking about what the next thing you should say is, rather than focusing on what she's saying and being fully in the moment. As I've said, women are constantly scanning for signs of danger, subconsciously at the very least. So while bold eye contact can increase tension a little bit, the next tip will actually reduce the tension a little bit. You want to take her on an emotional roller coaster ride. Number 5, casual body language. So casual body language happens when you're totally at ease in your surroundings and your situation. It happens with good friends and close family. So when you're at ease, your body language flows naturally, and this makes a woman feel safer around you. Remember, women mirror your feelings. When you're at ease, she's at ease. And a good way to do this is by pretending she's a bratty little sister, or your friend's bratty little sister, or a cousin, or someone that's young enough that you're not intimidated. And of course, you want to pay attention to her body language. If she's interested, then continue. If she's starting to show signs of disinterest, then you want to discontinue. How to know if she's interested or not interested, I'm going to share that with you at the end. And if you remember, you're engaging for the sake of conversation, not conversion. It's going to be easier to have naturally flowing body language, which is going to include number 6, touching her. What? I know what you're saying, but Anna, that's a recipe for a Me Too situation. No, it's not. At this point, if you've gotten this far, she's not running away. You really don't have that to worry about. But yeah, if you just walk up to her and the first thing you do is touch her inappropriately, that's a Me Too situation. I mean, obviously we've got to use some common sense here. Make her feel safe. Then use staged escalation. And if you're in a conversation, you're not escalating to anything other than conversation. So after you've established that you're safe to talk to, that you've been chatting and you've built the tiniest bit of rapport, then it's safe to start touching her appropriately, which is casually and briefly, like you might touch a bratty little sister. Don't be a perv. The only goal is to break the touch barrier, because who touches us? People we're comfortable with, people who are closer to us, people who we're intimate with, emotionally or romantically or what have you, people that we know. And a great way to use touch in this way is by using it to add emphasis to a tease or a joke, or even a statement. You could touch her on the elbow and say, hey, what do you think that guy does for a living? That way, the focus isn't on you touching her elbow, it's on the other guy and what does he do for a living, and more on how and where and when to touch her appropriately in a minute. And if you can work touch into a joke or a funny, then you're engaging in the next best conversation tip for attracting women, and that is number 7, unrestrained laughter. Unrestrained, genuine laughter is contagious. Laughter releases feel-good endorphins, and she will release feel-good endorphins, especially if she laughs as well, and she will associate those feel-good hormones with being with you. Also, unrestrained laughter shows confidence. It shows you're not self-conscious of your laugh or what people think of your laugh or your sense of humor. And if you're not good at this, don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up. It's a new habit, a new skill. Start practicing where it doesn't matter. More on this in a minute. If you can't laugh heartily and not feel self-conscious, then you might want to start with smiling or chuckling a little bit. So question, how about you? Do you feel self-conscious laughing heartily and genuinely amongst other people? Share your stories and thoughts in the comments. Now remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's practice. Nice little quote by Chris Williamson: perfectionism is procrastination masquerading as quality control. So the best conversation tips to attract women are to keep it light, fun, and playful. Initially, you want her to feel your vibe, not get caught up in whether or not your values match. Although that's important, this is just for initial conversation. And as alluded to, the best way to get better at conversation with women you're attracted to is to practice conversation with everyone, everywhere, at every time you have an opportunity. Create opportunities. Talk to the person in front of you or behind you if you're in line waiting for a coffee or at the grocery store, or talk to the teller, or talk to people. Try to make conversation wherever you go. Conversation is a skill that can be learned, but any skill requires practice to get better at. And just like when you learned to drive, at first there was a lot to think about and you were analyzing all the aspects of it. Eventually, it became second nature. And that's what will happen if you practice having conversations where it doesn't matter. Then when it does matter, your subconscious mind is going to kick in and use some of the skills you've already learned so you won't totally mess it up. Your subconscious will take the wheel. And what's the Wingmam motto? Right, always leave them wanting more. So if you want to know where, when, and how to touch a woman appropriately to build attraction, then you're going to want to watch my video, The 3 T's of Great Flirting. If you want to avoid an awkward rejection by not going too far in a conversation with a girl who's really not interested in you, then you want to watch my video on the signs that she's really not interested in you. Love to read your comments, so please leave me your thoughts. And thanks for being here. God bless.